Hey, so I'm here today with Jos Berry, the founder of Concept Paris, who is always the go-to at the Salon de la Lingerie and the Interfilière in Paris every season. I always look forward to tuning into her trend forecast overviews so I can know what's hot for the new season. So I have a few questions for Jos, as I did see her in Paris at the weekend. I think my first one would be, tell us a little bit about Jos and what she's been doing with Concept Paris over the years.
Um, it started all with women, as simple as that. I was in fashion. I was a manager of different shops. I was also part of the beginning of the boutique where we had something like that. Was the first time where you could make your own choice as a woman. You were not immediately attacked by a salesperson. And then after years being successful as a manager in different ready-to-wear shops, I thought this is not going anywhere for my career. I needed money. I needed to bring in the income. And what has happened, I said, I need to have a broader view. Those people all have families, all those shops, and I will remain part of the furniture. So, so then somebody said, you have such a good vision. I know post as a journalist in a trade paper in Holland. I was in Holland then. And since my husband at that moment suddenly had a job as a agent of a lingerie collection, they said, "Let me give you lingerie. We give you lingerie." Now I did it, and as like every woman, we know about lingerie. You don't need a special education for that. Certainly, when you know fashion. So they said, and you are now coming at the right moment because you are going to research why women don't want to buy bras anymore. It was the end of the beginning of the 70s, do not forget, long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, oh, that is a very interesting point. I'm going to do that research. I did this research because don't forget, I was a shopkeeper. I was used to talk with women. So doing it academically was not my thing. So I said, I only want to do it when I can go do a tour and work in shops. And I want to be a real salespeople and stand with women in the fitting room. So I did that. I did it everywhere, in department stores, in small shops, in expensive shops, in cheap shops. And I came to the conclusion that women love lingerie. My conclusion was women love lingerie, but the way they are treated is not the way to do it. They want it is actually a repetition. I'm feeling very confident at the moment because we see exactly the same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So I came to the conclusion that was incredibly interesting, that lingerie has more to do with women than it has to do with fashion, and it had to do with how women felt and how women wanted to present themselves. So I started on that. That was my basis, and then my new husband, he owned a part of a very early fashion service in New York at that moment. It was called TFS, the fashion service, and there we had clients like Maidenform and Lycra and all those big brands, and they were used to be given a sort of overview of designer shows, catwalk. Still, everybody does. And I said that's not how lingerie people need to be informed. And I did a couple of presentations for those people, and they said, "Okay, that is what we want. We want to have a longer vision. We want to not think in seasons. We want to think in our strategy. How are we going forward?" So before I knew it, I had very big clients personally, and that, of course, that at a certain moment we needed to separate, and I started Concept Spares for that. And then with my background, I also had a good contact with the fair, with the Salon de la Lingerie, and I knew only one thing, that I had to capture need when you come to a fair to be inspired, not just to find what you're looking for, but to be inspired to have something in your brain that brings you out that enormous limitation in your job, because you cannot do everything if you hire a job. It doesn't matter whether you're high up or lower, you always have your constraints. And so I thought a fair should be also triggering a sort of look into the future.
I've known you for some years now, but one thing you do is you don't sit still. You're constantly evolving, and I love how open-minded you are about that choice in this industry. And I always go to you as advice and as a kind of figurehead in this industry to guide us. So appreciate that. I think one of my burning questions for you is, inspiration is key. So what inspires you? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
People in general. And the second thing is texture and color. So I need color around me. I could not live without. I couldn't live without a garden with flowers in it, and with color, and especially beauty. I always surrounded by piles of fabrics, which I then remake into garments for myself, because I also need to feel it in my hands and do the stitching, and see the forms taking place. Perhaps I should have been a sculptor or something like that. I don't know, but I need to see that one-dimensional developing into multi-dimensional, and then the other thing that I'm constantly busy with is how does the brain react on that, and the only way that you know how you can learn is start with yourself, with your own brain. So be constantly busy with a sensual universe where all the senses. That I think that's what keeps me busy. So I will be never afraid as long as I have these ingredients. When I would be out of work or something like that, I think now, as long as I have that, I can probably, there's a click and I start again. I wouldn't mind. So I'm not at all thinking about money ever.
No,
that's a very bad characteristic alone. So.
I practice what you preach. I think if you love what you do and you're inspired by those that you work with, the money eventually comes. What do you think, Jos, was the biggest takeaway from Paris for you? Anything that you want to share that was newsworthy or of interest?
Now, what is very newsworthy is color, indeed, because it was a very colorful event, and the normal thing in situations like that over the years is that people say, yeah, we see it, but it will not work for us, or people will not buy it, or that is too expensive, or too difficult. Even with plant dye, where there was until now where they pushed it from the table as being not ready for industrial processes, etc. Everything related to color, which has an immediate effect on everything else, because that is what our job now is making sure that people understand color, because color in the past used was okay. Here in lingerie, anyway, here I have my shape. Don't forget that the big French brand never made any first samples in color. Everything is made in white. And I always thought, how is that possible? Because how can you make something which is pure sensual, not only for the body but also for the eyes? How can you make that in white and then decide, and then the process goes like, we need skin, we need the white, we need the black. What fashion color shall we take? Now, somebody shouts, Jos Berry said it's green, so they do green. And then that's hanging that one little thing. And where at this moment, and that is, I hope, more and more, and especially the young do, color is an attitude. I mean, it's a red. Red is what worries me most at the moment. Although I like red, but red has been so categorized as a color for Valentine's and Christmas.
Sure.
That nobody goes any out of their ways to experience red in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And there I think catwalks are helpful.
Yeah,
they're helpful because they're showing new forms, new silhouettes, and new fabrics in bright colors. And the hype of Valentino with his fuchsia is of course a giant trend at the moment. But I am worried that they go the same way again, just plonking it in. But I'm less nervous about it than I was before. And I must say then the second element is the trend, is the awareness of how young people, and especially Generation Z, starting to wear their lingerie. And people are nervous about that. We say everybody is running around naked in London, but when you go in London, in Paris, oh, all those naked midriffs, and you see their bras, and you see their breasts, and you say and whatever you can say to them is, doesn't that inspire you to make garments perhaps that look better in that situation? Because they do it with the ingredients they have, and so that is really. But that is definitely also a thing, that the dividing lines between swim and lingerie, and between lingerie and loungewear, and all those very clever people who break the rules. That is fantastic, and that's not only because Opaque, which is one of my favorite brands,
yes,
it started to do that a couple of years ago, and there's people said, how is she gonna, that is not a fabric for lingerie, that's a fabric for sport. And
yeah,
now that is I think after this fair more or less solved. That is out of the way. People are really opening up to understand, and also to understand how important it is not to make any statement anymore.
Yeah, you can't put product in a box, right? And there's so many hybrids and blurs between the categories, and the fabric innovation that's driving that. So any advice you would give to somebody that's starting a lingerie or swimwear brand in this industry?
No, I would say analyze for one thing that your heart is in it. Do not start with I like this style, so I'm gonna do a brand. I think the most missing element at the moment, and even in new collections, and you see as well that in older brands that when they change hands, etc., is the soul of the person who does it. You see also at the same time whether when this globalization is a little bit on hold now because of COVID, how important the role of the person behind it is, and how important also that role is for the people who buy it at the end, to take knowledge of that person, and to meet that person, and to hear them saying how fantastically happy that person is with their own collection, for instance. And there again, you see, if you go to Exposed on a fair, you see those fanatics you see them there, and you see them really, really defending their own brand and telling what the value is from their brand. And I think people not only buy a piece of thing, they buy the whole story behind, and that is also a big element. I found that enormously interesting in, I mean, the last years, or the last 10 years, I'm used to be surrounded, especially in the forum, with a lot of people who like what you're doing, but what we're doing. But it was now almost like overpowering how people wanted to be part of it, and how people wanted to talk with you, and how people wanted to make pictures, and how that certainly became almost like a personal trend, which I not necessarily think is positive, but it is a good illustration of how important the personal contact has become. And of course, it can be explained by the fact that we were not having personal contact. That plays a role. But I also think that it is, with all the distribution, which will be digital for a big part, that the need for retail and for real brick and mortar things will be very, very important in the next coming seasons, because that is something that people still find incredibly important: feeling, touching, seeing.
You heard it here first. Is there, Jos, any next steps for Concept Paris that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, our next attempt is traveling, back traveling, which has a consequence enough. I would like Concept Paris to find my personal successor. I mean, I have enough people around me which I think are fantastic, but I realize that is it's also for a company to start a company and be so incredibly instrumental in the growth of that company, that you are your own enemy in a certain way, because it's very difficult to sell or to give it forward. So that is certainly something I'm looking at this moment. But no chance at the moment. At the moment, not. So the next step is to stay as healthy as possible and to continue. But on the other hand, I'm surrounding myself more and more with young people. And although I think that the way we do it now, there is an element of experience. And experience is very, very difficult to just give somebody as a package.
I was going to say, Jos, we've seen it from some of these powerhouse design houses like Jean Paul Gaultier or others. Alexander McQueen, for example, when the creator is no longer a part of the journey, there's change. But I equally agree with you that when you're so integrated into a business, it's very hard to step away.
No, that on itself, what I said, step away, you can step away in different ways. I already started to step away a couple of years ago, but I now have stepped back in, because I took the business to London with the idea of myself being less active and having just a couple of consultancies, and that was it. That was less realistic. And certainly when the crisis of 2008, don't forget, we are going through a series of adaptations to a new tomorrow, which is not just COVID. We started already much earlier, where we saw sort of big hiccups. And then of course, then I stepped back in. I would like to find indeed this. So if somebody is listening to this, if you think you can you can make concept fairs in a brand, because that is another thing. Of course, you can, if you have somebody who can engage a couple of interesting people who together make up for. But now, to my sometimes to my big amazement, is all sitting in one head.
Yeah.
But there are people. I'm pretty sure there is somebody there who says, if I had my hands on concepts, I did fantastic things. Then I have to warn people immediately to the easy solution is to go digital.
Mm-hmm.
And there we already have had the first a couple of years ago, we started to take the first steps.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody did that, of course. And then I quickly realized that in the soul of every designer is a moment that they don't want what everybody else wants. They want to have something that is theirs, and to have a book in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
because we make trend books still, and we make them more and more fantastic and beautiful and touchy feeling. And they're pretty spicy, it's pricey, but rightly so. It's a work. It's every season. It's a work of art, and those books
Absolutely.
become more popular
Mm-hmm.
again. So here you go. And although it's something that we had to, of course, we have to ration out who is doing the work, the cutting of the fabrics, the gluing of the fabrics, apart from, of course, the sketches, because the like with like in like with the fabric, there's still a survival and reconcentration on levers. Levers is certainly, again, especially for the young people, and even when they can only use a little bit, it is it is all part of the authenticity of lingerie. And lingerie is different. You can't you can't just say it's a fashion thing. Not not completely. Of course it is, but not. It has so much specific things which are related to a higher element. It's more. I always say, because lingerie is more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It creates a different type of much more introvert people who need to be alone sometimes, and 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 get it gurgitating what they feel into a product. And that's of course something interesting when you combine that in a time when we all start to talk about metaverse. How is that going to work? And
Yeah. Yes, you're an incredible creator, and I would love to see your hands on product. I would love to see a Concept Paris brand come together and us be able to buy into those wonderful ideas and designs that you have, and have that would be magical for me. So
yeah,
hopefully that's the next step.
yeah, that I can. I certainly, because when I have the time in my brain to do that, to concentrate on that. Don't forget that everything I do is also done together with other people. I'm
Yeah.
not alone; they feed me as well, and that would be fantastic. Yes, indeed, and I certainly will come back to you then, because I do not believe in restarting a corporation, restarting something, a function which is very rigid and sitting. I believe that there are people who are very good at their work, and you should really include them in your path. And that is another big trend. The time that people were keeping everything for them, that was typical also for lingerie. You could
Mhm.
not see anything. The French people, especially the French brands, they put their collection on the fair the same as it was already in the shops in the past,
Yeah.
because they were so nervous that somebody already saw their new designs. Now that's over. People want to share with you. and even in the particularly insular thinking of the lace industry, there is also more openness now.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, so that goes only in the right direction.
Is there any final takeaway that you'd like to share with us today?
Final takeaway. What final takeaway?
Don't say pizza.
My final takeaway is the fair, as it is at the moment, is going to change. There's a new director. I saw him, and he is also the director of Who's Next. And there's a fair this weekend in Paris in the Grand Palais, which is completely based on bringing everything that young people like together, from metaverse to surf boards and shoes. He has that, and my big hope is that something of this dynamic new world will start to really take the place of the lingerie industry, because it is, for me, it's not going fast enough to change.
I
It
see.
should be faster, and it should be a little bit more dynamic, and we should, at the time of Interfilière, go to Le Bon Marché and see that there is the most fantastic lingerie on sale, and not think, gosh, is that what it comes out? That's a very disappointing. That was not the case in the past, and that is now the case. That there is a sort of hiatus in that whole feeling of women and what comes out of it and what people make of it, which is not the case with young people. But in the young market, it goes much faster, and I think that should also go in our market. In the lingerie market, things should become more universal.
Yeah, more reaction.
More reaction, more. You can't miss it. Oh yeah, less. But it's gonna happen, because one of the last takeaways, but it's really my last one. I've never seen so many women on a fair, because there were always a very
really
big
good point.
percentage of men, all the men who are buying fabrics, all the men who are buying, and I was really surprised by it. I thought, gee, this is amazing. This is a big change.
Onwards and upwards.
Yes, that's my famous last words.
Thank you, Jos. Always a pleasure. I hope we can do this again, and really appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay, take care of you. Bye.
Bye.